Have you wondered how the Los Angeles Rams went from straight absolute poverty and probably missing the playoffs to being probably one of the top Super Bowl contenders and making the playoffs? And this story all started back in week 4 when the Rams played the Indianapolis Colts. And this game was very close entering the third quarter, but unfortunately for the Rams, their main man, QB1, went down with a hip injury. And so they started Brett Ripon, obviously their backup. And he did a pretty good job filling in for Matthew Stafford. He went into overtime and won for the Rams 29-23. And so the Rams started 2-2, not so shabby. But after Matthew Stafford came back from his hip injury, things just didn't seem, I guess you can say, normal, because this guy, week 1, 334 passing yards. Week 2, 307 passing yards. Against the Bengals, 269. And in the game he got injured, he had 319 passing yards. So this guy was averaging just about 300 or above 300 passing yards. And the week after his injury, he obviously came back. And he had a bit of a drop-off against the Philadelphia Eagles. He only had 202 passing yards. But this game was close, and the Philadelphia defense was pretty good this season. So you couldn't argue against that. Now, Arizona started off horribly. And people knew that Arizona was going to be hot garbage. So as their defense. And Matthew Stafford put up 226 passing yards. Just about the same, just 4 yards more than when he played in Philadelphia. And moving on, 3 weeks after his injury in Pittsburgh, the Rams lost by a touchdown, but he also only passed for 231 passing yards. So people were starting to question if this would be like last season for the LA Rams, because last year Cooper Kupp was injured, obviously wide receiver number 1 in week 10, and the Rams were doing okay before that point, and that basically sealed the deal for the Rams season. Obviously last season the Rams going 5-12, and in this season things were really going bad. They only had 3 wins and 4 losses, so barely under a perfect 500, but they'd face Dallas. And Matthew Stafford had a god-awful game. He had 162 passing yards, and he only completed just above half of his passing yards. And so losing by 23 points, just about 3 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns, and it looked like the Rams were ranked 3-6. They played the Green Bay Packers. This team was somewhat in the same spot as the LA Rams, as they were also 3-6. And both of these teams were most likely missing the playoffs. Everybody was doubting them. And unfortunately for the Rams, Matthew Stafford got injured early, and I mean early in this game, which practically gave the Green Bay Packers dominance to win. And the next week they played Seattle, and Seattle was looking okay, not too good, not so bad. The Rams were definitely the underdog in this game, but they won 17-16. This was a close game, mostly defensive game, so that explains why Matthew Stafford only had 190 passing yards. But that was definitely a step up from the game in Dallas. And they played against the Arizona Cardinals, and I mean, it's the Cardinals. Obviously, you're going to get a win. They played an absolute baller of a game. Matthew Stafford balled out against Cleveland. Cleveland was doing so good, and they won. And this just proved that the LA Rams were definitely contenders for the playoffs, as the record was now 6-5, which was pretty good. And by the way they were playing, they'd be projected to make the playoffs. But sadly, the next week they played Baltimore and they lost in overtime by a return for a touchdown after kickoff. But they put up a super good game. Matthew Stafford almost having 300 passing yards, only have 294, which was definitely up for him. And so just showed that the LA Rams were playoff ready, and they were definitely contenders. They almost swept through Washington, 20-28. They won against New Orleans, 22-30. The New Orleans Saints just did not have a chance. Matthew Stafford balling out, having 328 passing yards and only 1 sack. And week 17, so close to achieving the playoffs, clinching the playoffs, and they won against the New York Giants by 1 point, 26-25, 317 passing yards, only 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, 4 sacks. So the yards look pretty good. All the rest of his stats look pretty bad. But some games don't stand alone on stats, which was proved in this game. And the next week for the Rams, they played the San Francisco 49ers. And the San Francisco 49ers benched all their starters because they wanted to rest up. They wanted to give their starters 2 weeks off. So since the Niners benched all their starters, that basically gave the Rams a free win. But that also came with a close win, 21-20. The 49ers backups went off in that game, which is surprising. So now they played the Detroit Lions in the wild card. Sunday night football.
Already a made man in Michigan, he arrived in Los Angeles as a gunslinger. A soul snatcher.
End zone, caught, touchdown!
But one who had not played beyond wild card weekend.
Stafford coming home.
We've all wished for this matchup.
Who has the better quarterback?
Home playoff game.
3 years later, now a Super Bowl champion, Matthews back in Motown.
We were a team that at the beginning of the season, nobody gave us a chance to be at the position that we're in.
The NFL could not have scripted it better. Sunday night at Ford Field, he's out to do the very thing that eluded him as a Lion. Matthew Stafford and LA, Jared Goff and Detroit. Their career arcs intersected. Now their postseasons collide in a primetime wild card showdown. Trades can be win-win, but playoff games cannot.
And they sadly lost by a point, 23-24. The Rams came back, but this was one of those cases where the comeback was just short. And this was heart-wrenching for Rams fans. They were beaten by their former quarterback who has found success in his new home, which is Detroit. And Matthew Stafford really could have gotten a revenge game, but he didn't. And this game was close. It came down to the wire. And that's how the Los Angeles Rams completed one of the best mid-season comebacks to ever exist in the NFL. If you guys enjoyed, please like and subscribe. I post content like this and many other forms of content. So please like and subscribe, and peace.